Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to Zwift Fitness Journey. Today we're on episode number 15 overall, but this is, more importantly, the Cycling March Madness. We're into round 2 today. We're going to do the entirety of round 2. It might take me a while to get through that because, well, it's half the field still to go. The next couple of episodes are going to definitely be on the shorter side compared to this one. So, I better just, get to it. So I'm going to ride around France in 24-kilometer loop. That's going to take me a little while to get through, and that's plenty of time to do the second round of the Cycling March Madness. If you haven't seen the previous rounds, do check back for those earlier episodes. Also, the bracket is available if you look back at the first episode, and if I'll remember, I'll get that posted again for those trying to get caught up and playing along with. Let's get to it.
Second round kicks off with our current generation of riders, and we begin with the lowest seeded competitor left in the tournament, and that is Chloe Dygert, the 16 seed who pulled off the massive upset in the previous round against 1 seeded Primoz Roglic. Dygert against 8 seed Egan Bernal. Dygert is only a rookie in the World Tour this year. 17 career wins on the road, 1 time trial world championship in 2019. But what she does have is an illustrious track career where she has been utterly dominant. 10 world championships and 2 world records in the individual pursuit. Against Egan Bernal, 1 yellow jersey, winning the Tour de France, 17 career wins, identical to Dygert. 2 top 5 rankings at the end of the year, a Tour de Suisse, Paris-Nice, Amgen Tour of California, and just 24 years of age, same as Dygert. So very, very similar backgrounds. Now, Bernal has 1 Grand Tour, and it is the illustrious one in the Tour de France, but with identical road marks, same number of wins, same number of major titles. You got to look at those two and go, okay, well, if they're identical on the road, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that Dygert has 10 championships and world records on the track. So Dygert, again, with a major upset, on to the next round. In the 5-4 matchup, we have Chris Froome against Julian Alaphilippe. Froome, 4-time winner of the Tour de France, including 7 stages, 2-time winner of La Vuelta, and 1 Giro d'Italia victory. So 7 Grand Tours, 3 Dauphinés, 46 wins, 4 years in the top 10 of the rankings, but does not focus on that overall year-by-year haul. They are very much a Grand Tour GC rider. And with 7 titles, it's pretty impressive. Alaphilippe, more of that mixed do-it-all, 1 world championship, 1 monument, 5 stages at the Tour de France, quite a few days in yellow, Strade Bianche, Tour of California, 2-time Flèche Wallonne winner, 34 career victories, and 3 years in the top 10 rankings. But with 1 world championship and 1 monument, that's only 2 big titles. Froome, 7 Grand Tours, on to the next round. In the most anticipated matchup, I think, of this entire round, we have Mathieu van der Poel against Wout van Aert, 6-3 matchup. Van der Poel and Van Aert both coming from a cyclocross background where they were dominant and went head-to-head with each other again and again and again and again. And now they've both taken it to the road where they again are going head-to-head. So it's been beautiful to watch these two, and they have arguably been the most exciting riders in the peloton of the last few years, especially as Peter Sagan is beginning to fade a bit with age. Van der Poel, 1 monument so far, 4 world championships at cyclocross, 1 Euro championship in cyclocross, 6 national championships in cyclocross, 31 career wins on the road, and number 3 in the current rankings. Van Aert, 1 monument as well, 3 world championships in cyclocross, so it's a little bit less, 4 nationals, a little bit less, but then also 4 stages in the Tour de France. 2nd at the World Championships to Alaphilippe. Strade Bianche victory, also in addition to his monument. 19 career wins, was ranked number 3 a year ago, and is currently ranked number 2 in 2021 thus far. Tough call, really tough call. In terms of cyclocross, you've got to give a minor edge to Van der Poel. Van der Poel has done more than Van Aert in cyclocross by a small margin, but definitely a margin. 3 world championships compared to 4, so a little bit of an edge. And when you add in the Euro plus the Nationals, it's definitely a little bit more. Van der Poel, 31 wins. Van Aert, 19. Again, a little bit of an edge to Van der Poel. They each have 1 monument, but then in the rankings, Van Aert consistently scoring a little bit more on the road last year, this year. Also, Van Aert, even though he ranked number 3 last year, for me, hands down, 2020, rider of the season was Wout van Aert. Almost single-handedly won Primož Roglič the Tour de France. Roglič did not do much on his own in that race at all. He had support in almost every single kilometer, other than stage 20, where he rode the individual time trial and lost it. Through the 19 stages before that, Wout van Aert was there at the helm for 60 kilometers a stage at the front of the race, leading the peloton. Just insane. And then the climbing and everything else. Van der Poel is an incredibly impressive rider, and he has got just that slight edge over Van Aert in so many ways. But Van Aert has been insanely impressive these last 2 years. And for that, a small edge to Wout van Aert. Van Aert on to the next round. We have a 2:10 matchup in Tadej Pogačar and Anna van der Breggen. Van der Breggen with 2 world championships, 3 Giro Rosas, which is the only Grand Tour that makes its way into the female scene, 3 Flèche Wallonnes, 1 Olympic championship, 3 monuments, 53 career victories, ranked number 1 twice, and 9 years running in the top 10. Meanwhile, Tadej Pogačar, 1 Tour de France victory in 2020, coming right at the end. He only wore yellow for a single day. He's had a single day in yellow in his entire career. He did win 3 stages and the King of the Mountains while he was at it. Also 3 stage victories at La Vuelta. He was number 2 in 2020. So far in 2021, ranked number 1. He's already amassed 21 wins, even though he's only 22 years of age. So nearly as many wins as he has years in life. He won the UAE Tour, Amgen Tour of California, Tirreno Adriatico just this year. He's tearing it up. He is such a good young rider. However, while I would give him the edge in current form over Anna van der Breggen, that is only slightly because she is also tearing it up in the Women's Tour, as she has the longevity and the successes over the career that in this case gives her the edge over Pogačar. Van der Breggen just on to the next round. Moving on to the all-time great cyclists, we have our 1-8 matchup with Eddy Merckx versus Fausto Coppi. Merckx, 5-time Tour de France winner, 5-time Giro winner, 3 world championships, 15 monuments, the number 1 all-time ranking, and from 1968 to 1975 was ranked number 1 each and every year. Fausto Coppi, not too shabby either, 5 Giro d'Italia winner, 2-time Tour de France winner, 1 world championship, 8 monuments, 90 career victories, 2-time number 1, and 12 years in the top 10 is incredibly impressive, but it is not Eddy Merckx impressive. Merckx on to the next round. The only upset from the first round in the all-time greats category was Miguel Indurain, the 13 seed. He goes up against the 5 seed Felice Gimondi. Gimondi, 3-time Giro winner, 1-time Tour de France winner, including 7 stages, 1-time Vuelta winner, so he does manage to win all 3, though only 5 total combined Grand Tour victories, 1 World Championship, 76 career victories, 3 monuments, and 8 years in the top 5 of the rankings from 65 to 73. Indurain, 5-time Tour de France winner, including 12 stages, 2-time Giro winner, including 4 stages, the Olympic time trial, and the World Championships in the time trial, 91 career victories, and 5 years in the top 5 from 90 to 95. As impressive as Gimondi's record is, Gimondi has the advantage of longevity. They've got the 5 total Grand Tours, but Indurain won the Tour de France 5 times alone, and 7 total, plus a couple World Championships. Gimondi did get 1, but again, slightly less impressive. The plus 15 wins of Indurain, again, is a little bit better. Just had a shorter career, so amassed fewer points over the course of that career. And so again, second time, Miguel Indurain with the upset, on to the next round. In our 3-6 matchup, we have Gino Bartali against Bernard Hinault. Hinault, 5-time winner of the Tour de France, 28 total stage victories there, 3-time Giro winner, and 2-time Vuelta winner. That is 10 Grand Tours. Also 4 monuments, 146 career wins, although only a single year ranked number 1, that is 1981. 9 years in the top 10, though, from 1976 to 1986. Bartali, 3-time Giro d'Italia winner, including 17 stages, 2-time Tour de France winner, including 12 stages, 7 monuments, and ranked number 1 7 times. That is 14 years in the top 10 from 1935 to 1954. Gino Bartali might have 5 Grand Tour wins to his name, which obviously puts him up there among the greats, but his high ranking at number 3 is largely due to longevity. Largely. 5 Grand Tours is pretty impressive, but Hinault, in a little bit shorter career, got 10 Grand Tours, double that of Bartali. That's enough to put Hinault into the next round. Our 2-7 matchup sees Sean Kelly go up against Jacques Anquetil. In our 2-7 matchup, we have Sean Kelly against Jacques Anquetil. Anquetil, 5 Tour de France wins, 2 Giro d'Italia wins, 1 La Vuelta win, claiming all 3 Grand Tours, 8 in total, 5 Pyrenees, 124 wins, 2 times number 1 in the rankings, and 10 top 10s from 1957 to 1966. Sean Kelly, the number 2 seed. Number 2 all-time in the rankings, largely thanks to longevity. 9-time monument winner, but not a great GC kind of guy. 1 Pyrenees, won it 7 times even. Won 16 stages of La Vuelta, and spent 5 years ranked number 1. And from 1980 to 1989 was in the top 10 each and every year. But with 0 Grand Tour victories to his name, it's actually a fairly easy win for Jacques Anquetil. Anquetil, on to the next round. The all-time great challenges begins with the 1-9 matchup. It's the Tour de France, including Mont Ventoux and Alpe d'Huez against Strade Bianche. Strade Bianche might be an up-and-comer, but it is an incredible race that is very enjoyable to watch and absolutely beautiful. It only began in 2007, but it has 60 kilometers of gravel through 11 various sectors. There is a fair amount of undulation along the way as well, and it has a wonderful finishing climb up a cobble that again adds to the drama. However, 21 stages of the Tour de France, and at one point it was even 25 stages, but the current version at 21 stages is just incredible. And Mont Ventoux and Alpe d'Huez at a combined 30 kilometer and 7.5 to 8% each, it's well over an hour and a half to climb those 2 climbs. Now, you don't do it immediately back to back, but it's an incredible feat just finishing the Tour de France. There's a reason why it's the most prestigious race, and it's pretty easy that it's the selection to move on here. Tour de France, on to the next round. Next up, we have a mighty battle between the 2 greatest monuments. Easily. It's not even really arguably. Paris-Roubaix versus Tour of Flanders, the 4-5 matchup. Now, Paris-Roubaix, the Hell of the North, has far tougher cobbled sections and significantly more kilometers through those cobbled sections. But it's also relatively flat. The Tour of Flanders is a combination of your traditional punchy classic along with, like Paris-Roubaix, a cobbled classic. It's short, steep, punchy, cobbled climbs. But in this one, I think the edge has got to go with 2 factors. 1, significantly harder cobbled sections. And 2, the famous velodrome finish. For me, even though the Tour of Flanders had its own velodrome finish for a number of years, you never actually got footage of those decades of early velodrome finishes because it was indoors and it was dark. It was not lighted. And so the cameras couldn't get anything. And so you only see riders go into the velodrome. So you never actually saw those races indoor. Paris-Roubaix with the velodrome, with the insane strength and difficulty of the cobbled sections, is a harder race. The Tour of Flanders, you just have to survive for little chunks of time. really difficult sections, but it's short. Paris-Roubaix, I think, is a harder test, and all, for me, slight edge, Paris-Roubaix on to the next round. Next is our 3:11 matchup, La Vuelta versus the Ultra Endurance Rides. The Ultra Endurance Rides pulled off an upset in the first round, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to pull one off here. The Ultra Endurance Rides are incredibly impressive, thousands of kilometers on a bike, but generally at a much slower tempo. There are some professionals in the Ultra Endurance circuits, but the majority are amateurs or semi-pros at best. Meanwhile, La Vuelta is a test of endurance. The Grand Tours are endurance testing. They cover tons of kilometers as well, and they do it with the professional peloton, the best riders in the world. And when you start throwing in massive climbs like the Machucos climb, La Vuelta is going to win this one out, though the Ultra Endurance certainly provides a mighty challenge. Vuelta, on to the next round. In the 2:10 matchup, we similarly have an Ultra Endurance event. In this case, it's the 1903 Tour de France, the original Tour de France, up against the Giro d'Italia, including Mount Zoncolan. Giro, the 2 seed, is there for a reason. The modern Grand Tours are incredibly impressive, incredibly tough, and in this case, the Giro d'Italia is, especially in recent years, becoming more and more impressive. The 1903 Tour de France is impressive because every stage averaged over 400 kilometers. However, the original tour was just 6 stages in length and almost entirely over flat terrain. And main reason for the majority of that being flat terrain or mild hills is because they had bikes with single gears and the tech just wasn't there like it is today. It was tough. It was really hard to ride those races, but it was over flat terrain and only 6 stages. So in this case, we're going to go with the Giro. Giro, on to the next round. Finally, our greatest moments of cycling are back for round number 2. We have the 2018 Giro d'Italia Stage 19 epic ride of Chris Froome, who 3 climbs before the finish went on an 80-kilometer solo ride to come from 4th place and then take the lead, win the stage, and set himself up for a victory in the Giro d'Italia against the 8-seeded 2017 victory in the Tour of Flanders, Ronde van Vlaanderen of Felice Gimondi. As impressive as that solo ride was, it was a single race, single day. The Chris Froome ride was even further out front and over numerous climbs, lengthy climbs. Really difficult for a rider to do solo and to stay out front the way they did, and to also win a Grand Tour while they're at it. So Froome, on to the next round. Next up is our 4-5 matchup, both from 2020. One, Stage 20 of the Tour de France, the individual time trial in which Primož Roglič lost out to Tadej Pogačar, who looked like he had a comfortable lead. He's a good time trialist, but he faded in that one. He still put up a good time, but we get a monumental achievement in Tadej Pogačar putting up an amazing time to claim the stage, 3rd of the Tour, and win the Tour itself there on that 20th stage against Anna van der Breggen with her Rainbow Bands double at the World Championships, winning the individual time trial and then crushing the field with a 35 to 40 kilometer solo ride at the end of that one to claim the victory in Monza. Van der Breggen, very impressive feat, but we're also talking about a peloton in the women's tour that obviously, following through this tournament, you know that I give a lot of credit to. However, it is not as competitive as the men's tour is. Just being honest with that. We still have a handful of elite riders who are very competitive with one another, but tend to beat up on the rest of the field fairly easily. To beat the best riders in the world, the number 1 ranked rider in the world in Primož Roglič, in this case is going to be ever so slightly more impressive. So that's Pogačar. On to the next round. Next up is a 3-6 matchup. It's the 2019 Amstel Gold Super Victory of Mathieu van der Poel, who tried to go in an early break, went too hard, too early, faded, ended up falling all the way back to the peloton with breakaway riders still up the road and breakout riders from the peloton up the road. Van der Poel then slowly but surely rides on and on and on and slowly beats up the peloton, doing 98% of the turns at the front by himself, and has just a few riders left as they approach the finish, chasing down Julian Alaphilippe, Jakob Fuglsang, and Mikkel Kwiatkowski, who cat and mouse a little bit, think they've got the race totally wrapped up, and out of nowhere, Van der Poel pulls that peloton along, the remnants of it, and then outraces everybody to the line to claim the victory. Going against the 2003 Tour de France Stage 8 Alpe d'Huez Showdown, in which, early on the climb, already breaking away top 3 riders, you have Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich among them, and a spectator gets in the way, and all 3 riders go down. Armstrong with a problem, last to get up and going again. Ullrich and the others ride off. The other groups catch up to them. They slowed down a little bit for a little bit of time and then ride on. Armstrong didn't immediately come back, so they just got on with the race. But Armstrong gets on the bike and then just starts bowling his way through the field. One rider after another just goes down. He catches up and goes right on by. Catches up, goes right on by. Again. And then he catches that main group. And he doesn't stay with them for long at all. He almost immediately, just like the previous ones, rides right on past. Up he goes, up the climb, up the Alpe d'Huez. Ullrich tries to go with, can't hang with him. They've been up there on cruise control, and he flies past them on his way to not only having a massive stage victory on that one, and of course claiming another tour, which he would then later lose, but he goes in one of the fastest climbs all time. And he spent a good chunk of the time on that climb on the side of the road dealing with the crash. Incredibly impressive, but also incredibly EPO affected. In this case, we're going to go with what I certainly hope was a clean ride from Mathieu van der Poel. Van der Poel, on to the next round. In our last matchup of the second round, we have our 210 pairing. 1987 Tour de France victory of Steven Roche against the 2002 Down Under victory of Michael Rogers. Now, in Roche's case, this was an odd year. We had a number of riders who had either just retired or were out due to injuries, and all of what would have been the top 3 or 4 favorites were absent from that year's Tour de France. But Roche was just coming off a victory in the Giro d'Italia, was shattered, beaten up, had not recovered at all, and came into the race struggling. He struggled his way. He was 3.5 minutes behind at the midpoint of the race. But then the recovery was complete, and he was ready to get on with it. By a handful of stages later, he had moved all the way up into near the top of the standings, was just 2.5 minutes down, and the battle began. He goes back and forth over the next few stages, moving his way up into first for a moment, but then ultimately second, and then in the time trial takes a comfortable minute win over his competitors to flip into the lead and hang on to win the 1987 Tour de France. Up against the legendary ride of Michael Rogers, in which he was leading the Tour Down Under, virtually, in a small break that was going off to win the thing. And it was pretty late in the stage when his derailleur broke. Rogers pulled off to the side of the road, hops off, looks at his bike, sees what happens, absolutely disgusted because it's his home race, the Australian rider, and he slams his bike into the tarmac. And as he's doing this and seeing what happens, right behind him on the side of the road, a spectator sees what's going on, reaches into the back of his own Outback, grabs his personal bike, and hands it to Michael Rogers, who hops on and rides off. And it turns out it was the exact copy, exact replica of the same bike that Rogers was riding, including the exact same frame size and almost identical seat height. Rogers goes on to catch back up, nearly winning the stage. He ends up taking second on the stage, but moves into that virtual lead and ends up winning the Tour Down Under. Absolute legendary stuff, especially for the positive impact of a spectator in this case. Roche, I can't give him as much credit, is as exciting as it was for him to claim that victory. For Roche, he really lucked out in the fact that the main competitors just weren't there. It was like Gegenhardt getting his win in the Giro. It was impressive, it was exciting, but it was still lackluster. And that's what the Roche one is for me. Rogers, on to the next round.
Alright folks, well if you didn't gather it from the last 6 kilometers, I've slowed down a lot. I was keeping up with a group that's definitely half a watt per kilogram better than I am. And I kept up with them for a good 7K or so, and then slowly kind of had to let myself go and fade back, and then I had a hard sprint in that KOM where I just again pushed myself without really properly recovering. So on top of that, I haven't felt too well the last 36 hours or so. Bit off. Still a little bit of effects from the vaccine, and not quite back to myself just yet. Well anyway, hope you enjoyed round 2 of Cycling's March Madness today. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time as we take on the Sweet 16. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.